What is going on, guys? This is Pat Skywalker here, and welcome to my spoiler take on Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. If you have not seen the movie, watch the movie first and then come back here, or if you just don't care about Star Wars anymore for one reason or another, hey, welcome to the channel. So, anyway, first off, I'm going to be referring to my notes a lot. I have like 3 or 4 pages of notes in this for this video alone, which I think that's the best way to talk about this movie. And like, if you ever notice, like, I'm looking down at my notes whenever I'm in another review. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Like, I'm not looking at anything else. It's just notes. So anyway, and I'll just refer to them, so you'll definitely see this throughout the video. All right, so we start off with the opening crawl. You know, Rise of Skywalker. There's a mysterious voice out there. What is it? It's the Emperor, and they mention that in the crawl. It's like, oh, okay. And it's like you knew that the Emperor was going to be in this new entry, but at the same time, it's like, you know, I feel like that would have been a great surprise either at the end of Last Jedi or at the beginning of Rise of Skywalker, but no, they just stayed out there, and you knew that Ian McDiarmid was cast in the new one. And I feel like, again, kind of should have had a plan, but I'll definitely get more into that at the very end of this video. This video will not only be my takes on some certain spoilers, and then like at the end it's going to be, you know, how I feel about this trilogy as a whole and what they could have done overall. So anyway, Kylo Ren, he winds up going to this planet where Emperor is currently at, and we learn that we actually learn about Snoke this one. He's a creation of the Emperor, and like he has a bunch of them in glass tubes, so he has like a bunch of them to be like Kylo Ren's mastermind or something, like so we can be like caught off guard when it's really the Emperor. And I'm like, huh? Like, what? Okay, cool, we learned about Snoke in this one, but kind of feels underwhelming considering everything that happened. And oh well. And then Kylo Ren begins hearing this voice. It's like, who is it? What is that out there? Are you sure you're the Emperor? And it's the Emperor. And again, we already knew that. Again, would have been a great surprise. And so eventually, the Emperor has all these Star Destroyers that are ready to go out and attack the Resistance. And like, the Emperor's been gone for so long. And he's not really mobile, as you'll see in this movie. How would he get all these Star Destroyers together? You know, I didn't really ask in the movie, but now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, yeah, that does not make sense. Oh well. Basically, everyone confirms in this return. Like, the Resistance confirms that he's been spotted. He's alive again somehow. Meanwhile, Rey, Finn, Poe, C-3PO, Chewie, and BB-8, they all go on this journey. They go on a little side quest, essentially, to find a dagger, which will have Sith markings on it to tell you where this map is, where Exegol is, which is the planet where Palpatine is. And yeah, they go to a planet where they're essentially, all these creatures are celebrating Burning Man. I'm like, yeah, this is Burning Man right here. I didn't think too much about it. Oh well. And during this celebration, they run into Lando, who will play a minor part later on in the movie, as you'll see. Then the Knights of Ren, they come and spot them. They want to capture them. They only capture Chewie. Everyone else escapes. But Rey notices that Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren are there. So at one point, when the Knights of Ren are taking off with Chewie in the air, like, she's trying to reach for them, like try to use the Force to bring the ship down. Meanwhile, Kylo Ren's trying to do the same thing on his end, but Rey overpowers it, of course. But this time, she uses lightning to bring the ship down, killing the Knights of Ren on board, killing Chewbacca. And I said in my trailer, like, there was a moment where my mouth just dropped, and I thought it was just going to be probably the most controversial thing in this movie. And that was the moment for me. I thought, they can't kill off Chewbacca after they just killed off, Han Solo and Luke Skywalker. Now they're going to kill off Chewie? Don't kill off Chewie. Can we just leave some characters from this original trilogy alive? And, like, what are they going to do after this? Like, what are they going to do? They just killed Chewbacca, for crying out loud. Well, 5 minutes later, then they go back on it. It's like, oh, here's Chewie. He's alive. I'm like, oh, okay. First time I felt something in this movie. Now I'm back to feeling nothing in this movie. Oh, well. Then eventually they go on another side quest. The gang goes on another mission in this. They run into Kerry Russell's character named Zori Bliss. I had to write that down because I honestly just forgot a lot of the names of the new characters in this movie. And she's an ex-girlfriend of Poe, and she's gonna be important later. Sort of, not really. Then they realize that, they have the dagger. Oh, I should mention, they completed that test. They found the dagger. It has Sith markings on it, and C-3PO is the only one who can read it technically, but can't read it at the same time. It's really confusing. Oh well. And basically, his whole memory is wiped at that point. They're like, okay, we're about to wipe your memory, but C-3PO is like, wait, I just want to take a last look at you guys because you're my friends and I'll miss you. And when I saw that trailer, I didn't feel it. Because C-3PO, he didn't really bond with them in this movie whatsoever. All his time was spent with General Leia, just being C-3PO and not really doing anything. So his memory is wiped. He can now tell them what this dagger says in Sith. And there's a running gag where he doesn't know characters that he's known forever. Like there's a running gag where he runs to R2-D2. So then, the new alien that they introduced in this movie, a lot of people really seem to like him, and I kind of didn't find him that funny, honestly. It's not like he was absolutely annoying or anything, because he wasn't on screen for very long, but I just didn't find anything he said to be that interesting to me. It's like, it was a little green minion, essentially. While not as annoying as a minion, can't help but think this would definitely be a minion. Also, it's mentioned at the beginning that, there's a scene at the beginning of the movie where Poe and Finn, they're on the Millennium Falcon, they get a message from a mole in the First Order, and they don't know who the mole is. And eventually, they learn that the mole is actually General Hux, of all people, in the First Order. And I'm like, huh? What? And, after they learn it, they have to... Oh, yeah, by the way, the whole Chewie thing, I should mention... Rey learns that Chewie's alive, so it's like, okay, we gotta go from this planet after we wipe C-3PO's memory, and we gotta go back onto this First Order base. And that's where Finn and Poe learn General Hux is the mole after all, and it's like... And he mentions, something, probably the most interesting thing about General Hux in this whole trilogy, where it's like, I'm not doing this because I'm changing sides, I just want to see this just because I want to see Kylo Ren lose. I'm like, that's probably the most development you will have in this movie, and... Well, it's like, again, I thought it was the most interesting thing. Let's see where they go with this. Oh, he's killed immediately by a new member of the First Order, played by Richard E. Grant. And I didn't even bother looking up his name. He was just a generic villain to me. So it's like, this guy who was only in a meeting in one scene is now essentially running the First Order while Kylo Ren is not there. Whatever. And eventually, Rey's looking for another clue to find where they're supposed to go next, where she's supposed to find the Emperor, and eventually she has another force projection of Kylo Ren where they have a really cool battle and everything. I do like the battles in this one quite a bit, and then at the end of the battle when she's about to escape with Poe and Finn, she learns that she is actually on Last Jedi she was mentioned, oh, you're actually from no one, and Kylo Ren's like, you're no one. So a lot of people were mad about that. Well, then Kylo Ren's like, no, you are technically from someone. You are technically the Emperor's granddaughter. And I'm like, huh? What? Okay. Honestly, I don't hate they went in this direction. They do allude to it a little bit in Force Awakens and in Last Jedi, so it's like, makes sense, I guess. Also, we saw the Force lightning earlier in the movie, so I guess that makes sense as well. So, again, let's see how they do this. Eventually, they go on another side quest. So many side quests in this movie. It's like a video game, for crying out loud. Then they run into Jannah. She was another character who I forgot all about. She's also a former stormtrooper. She's like Finn, and she's with a bunch of other former stormtroopers who broke from the First Order. And they go to... They basically find the remains of the damaged second Death Star from the end of Return of the Jedi. And Rey and Kylo, they have another force projection battle, which it's kind of cool, but they're also really cool to see these battles and everything. But then during this battle, Kylo Ren's feeling something. It's a connection to, Princess Leia, his mother. And she's about to die. She dies right afterwards, and Kylo Ren feels this, and Rey stabs him with her lightsaber. And Leia dies. She goes into the Force, and eventually he sees Han Solo's spirits saying, hey, hey, buddy, you're not this you're not this evil guy, you're not Kylo Ren, you're really Ben Solo. And that's the moment where he goes, yeah, I'm done being Kylo Ren. I'm just gonna chuck my lightsaber into the ocean. So much lightsaber chucking in this trilogy. And the whole Leia thing, I honestly didn't feel it. Mainly because I felt like, Force Awakens spent a lot on Han Solo, and so it was powerful when he died. Last Jedi, however you feel about it. They do spend a lot on Luke, and his death was very impactful. I know I felt something while watching that movie. And here I kind of felt nothing, because this movie doesn't really spend a whole lot of time on Leia. Like, they use footage from Force Awakens and Last Jedi to create some sort of arc in Rise of Skywalker, and it just doesn't really work. I get it, you can't use Carrie Fisher anymore, so you have to work with what you can. But the way they do it is, like, they use an actress who doesn't really look like her, and it's so she's hidden, like, when she's about to die and everything, and then she goes into the Force, kind of like what Luke did. So I know you couldn't really use Leia, and originally the plan was actually for Leia to have her own movie with Episode 9, and sadly with Carrie Fisher's passing, they couldn't do that. Plans changed, unfortunately, and I'll address more on that after I'm done with my spoiler talk for this movie. So anyway, afterwards, Rey goes to Act 2, where she builds this fire, and she's about to chuck her lightsaber into the fire. She's done. She can't defeat the Emperor. But then the ghost of Luke Skywalker appears, and he's like, you should not treat a lightsaber that way. More Last Jedi jabs in this movie, so yeah, Last Jedi jabs everywhere in this movie. And basically, he tells her, yeah, I failed you, but, I want you to succeed no matter what. And it's like, you need to fight for the Resistance. You need to face the Emperor once and for all. So anyway, she goes to Exegol, where the Emperor is. The Resistance follows her all the way over there, and she goes to him like it's really like he's on a crane of some sorts because he doesn't have legs anymore. And while that's really cool, I should mention this. Like I mentioned, Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter, which implies that he has been intimate with a woman before. And if you're ever feeling lonely, if you like no one loves you, just remember, the Emperor apparently had a child, who apparently had a child. So, you are not alone. No one's really alone in this universe. Anyway, she goes to Exegol, she faces the Emperor. The Emperor's like, when you kill me, I'm just going to transport my spirit into you, and you will be the Emperor. And interesting, and it's like, you explain that how you survived Return of the Jedi or whatever. Anyway, the Resistance, I mentioned, follows her. We do see some characters there, like we do see Rose Tico briefly. We do see Billy Lord's character there briefly. And they're all kind of just failing at the First Order and the, Star Destroyers by Emperor. And Poe is failing. He's leading this mission. And it's like, you've had all this trilogy to basically lead a mission. Like, you were leading something in Force Awakens. You wanted to lead a mission in Last Jedi, and now you're finally another mission in Last Jedi, and you wanted to lead this mission, and nothing's going well, and you don't know what to do. And I'm like, dude, you had 3 movies to prepare for this. Think, jeez. And at the moment he's giving up, he hears Lando over the speaker going, hey, we're all here. We're on your left. Not the first Avengers Endgame reference in this movie. So anyway, Ben shows up also to where the Emperor is, Exegol, and he's confronted by the Knights of Ren. He kills them. Again, they're underdeveloped. And then, Ben comes to Rey. They fight the Emperor. Palpatine just uses the Force to throw Ben off a cliff. He's very injured, it sounds like. It sounds like he would die from that. He doesn't. I'll explain later. Eventually, Palpatine overpowers Rey to the most damage she'll probably take in this trilogy. And then she hears the voices of the previous Jedi, and I actually kind of like that moment, honestly. Like, you hear all these Jedi, not just, Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill, but you also hear the other Jedi, including, Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen, Samuel L. Jackson, Liam Neeson, and apparently people from, the TV shows and such, which I thought was a pretty cool moment. And anyway, she's feels empowered because she has all the Jedi in her. Palpatine's like, I am all the Sith. And Rey goes, well, I am all the Jedi. And she uses 2 lightsabers to basically stop the Emperor's attacks and everything. And again, the whole, I am all the Sith. I am all the Jedi. Again, another Endgame reference. And I kind of don't want to blame them because they didn't know what Endgame was going to be like when they were making this movie. But, oh well. Anyway, he's dead. Anyway, she kills the Emperor once and for all. Doesn't really make sense because he said he was going to, you know, put his spirit into her. And he doesn't. I don't know. Like, that's the least of my worries in this movie. Anyway, after that, you know, we see that Ben survived that fall, even though it sounds like he didn't. But anyway, he knows Rey's weak and she dies. And he revives her using the, like, force healing. And, like, Rey uses force healing at one point. And like, a lot of people are, obviously people don't like Rey because she's too overpowered and she doesn't really have powers that are, like, you can't explain. Or, like, she can do all this stuff without any proper training. And, like, I get that. And they tried to explain it in this movie. And I think it half works, honestly. So, like, they basically revive each other at various points. Like, you know, he revives her with the Force. And then she's like, oh, hey. And then they kiss. Reylo fans rejoice. I am not a Reylo fan. And then Ben dies, becomes one of the Force, like Luke and Leia. And then there's a big celebration. Chewie gets the medal that he's been missing since Force Awakens, A New Hope. Also, I do want to address the LGBT kiss in this movie. There is a kiss between 2 women in this movie. It's blinking if you miss it. And honestly, I'm like, oh, cool, representation. But it didn't really resonate with me, not because, like, I'm against that at all. I'm not saying, you know, you can't have, I'm not going to say you can't have representation of LGBT people in blockbusters or anything, but the characters in that scene, they didn't really have lines. I think one of them had 1 line and the other one didn't. So it's like, it just random. So it's like, while I'm all for LGBT representation, at the same time, like, don't do it with characters who have nothing, like, even less to offer than the characters who already have very little to work with. Also, Rose Tico is pretty much missing for this entire movie. I know a lot of people did not like her, but you could have at least done something with her. Because in this movie, she's like, oh, I'm with Leia this entire time, and I'm training. What else are you doing? I'm training. She's in the battle, and she's like, I'm training still. Not really, but, like, she's barely in this movie, and, like, you could have at least used her in some way, and I feel like, you know, I feel bad for Kelly Marie Tran and all the attacks that she got. They could have at least done something to make her character more likable, have her do something more in this movie than just say, I'm training, or something. Then, and also, Rey goes to Tatooine at the end. There's a scene that's very reminiscent of her entrance in Force Awakens, which I did like. Then afterwards, she buries the 2 lightsabers, and she has her own lightsaber now. It's yellow, which I thought, you know, cool. I'm not one of those people who's like, you know, I kind of just got the whole blue and red, you know, lightsabers. Like, blue was good, red was bad. And, you know, like, other characters had other lightsabers. Yoda had green, Mace Windu had purple. So I was like, I'm not one of those people who's, like, going to read into that, but I'm like, you know, that's a cool lightsaber. I've never actually seen that in a movie before. Like, you know how in Force Awakens, Kylo Ren had that red lightsaber with 2 ends sticking out, or Count Dooku had that double-ended lightsaber, which I thought that was kind of cool. So, anyway, she comes across a traveler. She asks who she is, and she goes, Rey, I'm Rey. And then she sees Luke's and Leia's ghosts. They're smiling at her, and she goes, I'm Rey Skywalker. And I kind of didn't like that. Not because I feel like she, you know, destroys the name of Skywalker or anything, but I feel like that's just the safest answer. Because the Skywalker name, you know, provides hope for the universe, and everyone knows a Skywalker name. It's like when they think of Skywalker, they think of hope, and they think of, like, you know, a hero automatically. And I feel like she should have gone in a different direction, honestly, but I kind of understand why they did this direction. The other direction she could have gone, she could have said, oh, I'm Rey Palpatine, and I am not my grandfather's legacy. I am my own legacy or something. And that would have made it a little bit better in my opinion. Or she could have just said, you know, I'm simply Rey, and, like, I'm one of the Jedi or something. But then that probably would have insulted a lot of Rey haters out there. Also, I do want to address this. There's this whole little joke that runs in the first third of this movie where Finn is trying to tell Rey something, and it's kind of implied that he's going to tell her that he has feelings for her, and they never address it after like the first act, and because he runs into Janna, and they don't address this again. She doesn't even ask him at the end, hey, what did you want to tell me, a couple times when we were during this whole mission. Yeah, I kind of did ship them at first, so I kind of like, oh, well, hopefully they work on that with the next two movies. And they don't. They paired Finn with Rose Tico in Last Jedi, and then they paired Finn with Janna in Rise of Skywalker. So, I guess that kind of leads into, like, how I feel about this trilogy as a whole, and that there clearly wasn't, like, a concrete idea of what they wanted to do with this whole trilogy. Because I would say Force Awakens, started the whole thing strong. And, it was like, it had a lot of people feeling like Star Wars was back. We are coming to like a new era of Star Wars that's going to be great. And then Last Jedi happened, split everyone. And at first, like my feelings on Last Jedi, I admit it's a very well-made movie. I do understand why people strongly dislike this movie. I get it. And like the more I think about it, the more I kind of see the flaws. So, I will address that in my next video where I rank all the Star Wars movies. But anyway, I feel like it's kind of a mixture of like they had no idea what they were doing and they're trying to make up for events that just happened during the course of the making of this series. Because like obviously Carrie Fisher passed away, Colin Trevorrow was initially assigned to direct the third entry in this trilogy. And that's the thing. They initially hired 3 different directors to direct each new movie in this series, which actually is kind of reminiscent of the original trilogy. 3 directors directed the original trilogy. George Lucas directed the first one. I don't remember who directed the other 2, but I should have looked that up before this video. Anyway, like George Lucas directed all the prequels. And then this trilogy happens, and they do the same thing as the original trilogy, where it's like, oh yeah, J.J. Abrams, and you had Rian Johnson, and you had Colin Trevorrow, but then Colin Trevorrow left for apparently creative differences, and then they brought back J.J. Abrams because he did so well with Force Awakens. But then Rian Johnson comes in and basically does his own thing with Last Jedi. Like, Mark Hamill infamously said, I didn't like the direction Rian Johnson took with this movie, and he still did it. And he was like, I read somewhere in an interview that kind of like describes my feeling of Last Jedi. I don't agree with the choices he made, but I do get it that it works in this story. Not the whole story as a whole, but it works for just that movie. So I guess I kind of agree with that with Last Jedi. Anyway, I feel like they just kind of needed a plan, and they just kind of needed to stick to a plan. Because, like, Rian Johnson kind of just took his own thing. Like, they made Luke into this character who was obviously not like the original Luke. And I don't mind if they change characters or anything, like, provide new layers to the character or anything. But just make it make sense. And also, like, the whole Snoke thing. I feel like Snoke was supposed to be the main villain in this whole entire trilogy. And then with Rian Johnson, he just killed him off. Which initially I did like. Because, like, oh, it's just part of Kylo Ren's, like, quest for more power. And, yeah, I can't really defend Last Jedi too much. I do admit it's a very well-made movie, and it's better made than most Star Wars movies. Like, a couple of the prequels, it's better made than those, I'll admit. And it's, like, kind of brings me to, like, another idea that I had, like, what can they do now that this whole trilogy is over? Is Star Wars, like, officially dead now? Yes and no at the same time. Because, like, I feel like this trilogy definitely split people. Obviously, like, it seems like, everyone loves the original trilogy. People hated the prequel trilogy when they came out, even though they still saw them. And people are still seeing the sequel trilogy and the spin-off movies. But now people are just more split than ever on this. And so split that people are actually going back to the prequels and saying, George Lucas, we were mad at you. But that's also part of another idea for a video I want to do, where it's like, Star Wars. I feel like the original Star Wars trilogy was lightning in a bottle. It was something that probably wasn't going to work out. Like, everything seemed weird and odd and different. Like, even Alec Guinness, who played Obi-Wan Kenobi initially said, yeah, this is so weird. I don't like doing this. Please kill me off. I don't want to do this anymore. And that's how Obi-Wan died. So this original trilogy was lightning in a bottle, and, George Lucas couldn't capture that with the prequels, and he was outraged by fans, basically made fun of him all the time because of the prequels. So he's like, you know what, I'm going to sell it to Disney, see what they do with it. And now you have Disney make this trilogy that gets mixed reviews overall, And, you know, and then people are going back to George Lucas saying, you know, we were feeling bad. So is that going to happen if we get another Star Wars trilogy? It's like if we get another trilogy, like if Rian Johnson actually makes that trilogy, which I have no idea if he will. Like the guys from Game of Thrones are supposed to do a trilogy, but they walked. Will they look back on this trilogy and say, you know, we misjudged you, sequel trilogy. We realized it could have been worse. Is that what's going to happen? Also, like, you know, people love the expanded universe in the books, so maybe continue with that. Also, people love the TV shows that they're based off of, that like come out of Star Wars, like you know, The Mandalorian, The Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels. People seem to enjoy that, so like, I feel like it's kind of hard to capture lightning in a bottle, and that's what the original trilogy was. And the prequels are not lightning in a bottle. The sequels are not lightning in a bottle. And I feel like if they kind of just stuck to a plan, and if they all kind of just stuck to it, then maybe this could have been a success. Because like this movie, like Rise of Skywalker, is just nothing but let's just throw stuff out there and let's see if it works. And I get it, like plans change and everything. And, you know, like they initially said, like at the beginning of Force Awakens, like, oh, we'll just basically kind of just do A New Hope again for this movie. And like in this one, you can definitely tell that J.J. Abrams is still trying to milk that nostalgia. Like he even has a scene for the Ewoks in Rise of Skywalker. And I'm like, oh, come on. Like I know you're all for the nostalgia train and everything with Star Wars, but come on. I don't need more Ewoks. Like that was the downfall for Return of the Jedi for me. And I don't need them. I really don't need them. So anyway, like that's kind of what I'm trying to get to next, like with some of the things that I kind of want to address. Maybe like some of the things that could be explained more, like you could explain more about Rey in like a book maybe. Or you can explore the Knights of Ren in like a mini-series that leads up to the prequels. Like this could take place around like sometime between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens maybe. Also, you could have like a Finn and Poe show, like a mini-series on Disney Plus, which I think that would work. John Boyega, I know you're not really into Disney Plus, but honestly, that would be the only way to save this. Like, because like that's one of the few biggest disappointments for me with this whole trilogy. How they treat John Boyega's character was a joke. Because like he started off so strong in Force Awakens. He was my favorite character in that movie, and he progressively got worse with each new movie. And I blame that on the writers more than anything. I feel bad. Like these are all good actors doing this. Like Adam Driver's really good in all these movies. Daisy Ridley, I say she's good. She's well acted. She's acting really well in this movies. Oscar Isaac is good. John Boyega is good. Like this has good actors doing good things, but they're not really given much to do in these scripts. And like overall, like yeah, they clearly needed to have some sort of concrete plan in what they were trying to do, and I feel like there are ways to fix this. Not with movies. I would say just stop with movies for a while. Just stop until you actually get like a concrete plan going. And it seems like they were going to do that with, you know, a new trilogy by Rian Johnson, a new trilogy by the Game of Thrones guys. And that's not working out, is it? So I can't really blame too many people. I guess if I had to pick one person to blame overall, I would pick Rian Johnson. Even though I do admittedly think Last Jedi is a very well-made movie. It's a very well-acted movie. I do blame him overall for this trilogy. For how it kind of ended. Like, you did things that you basically changed things from Force Awakens that you didn't like and changed it into new direction. And even though I'm like, you know, I'm kind of okay with the changes, I am aware it's like, okay, that basically kind of led to this messy final conclusion to not only the saga of, not only to this trilogy, but to the saga of the Skywalker clan, is it all? Like, I don't want to say clan. Skywalker story as a whole. So I would pick him. I wouldn't I wouldn't blame Kathleen Kennedy. I know a lot of people want her fired, and like I get it, but I wouldn't blame J.J. Abrams either. And I feel like if they got like, and you can even do that 3 directors thing where it's like, oh, we have 3 directors doing each movie, but then again, you have to look at each director and see like if you have 3 directors who are like kind of the same. And J.J. Abrams is very different from Rian Johnson, so that didn't help that much either. Now that I'm really thinking about it. Overall, like I said in my original review, I gave Rise of Skywalker 2.5 out of 4 stars. I'm going to lower it down to 2 out of 4 because there's a lot in this plot that doesn't work for me. the acting is good, the score is good, the fight scenes are great. There are some great moments in this movie. It's just the better moments in this movie are smaller compared to the bigger moments, which I feel like they wanted me to feel more for, and I just didn't. So those are my overall thoughts on Rise of Skywalker and how I feel with spoilers and everything. How I feel like they should handle Star Wars in the near future. How I feel about this trilogy as a whole, and how I feel like I'm just kind of done talking about Star Wars for a while. Honestly, I'm just done. So spoil away. Talk about spoilers in the comments if you want to. Just be friendly to people. Honestly, that's all I can really ask for. Let's bring balance to the Force. And yeah, overall, yeah, this is Pat Skywalker here, and may the Force be with you.